Those teens express fear over the possibility of a shooter being in their school. When I was growing up in Ohio, my greatest concern came while practicing tornado drills. Well, our next story is a PBS Charlotte exclusive. How Charlotte police prepare for the same real-life situation we've seen in Columbine, Sandy Hook, and Parkland. It's the active shooter training that CMPD has never shown to the public before, until now. Charlotte police don't want potential shooters to see all their strategy, but they do want people to know that if it happens, they're ready. Reporter Jeff Saunier joins us again to give us this inside look.
Yeah, this is where police are taught and retaught in most cases to de-escalate the situation. You know, keep people talking, slow things down, buy more time. But when there's an active shooter involved, well, that's when cops are forced to get aggressive, to toss out most of their old training and focus on one thing and one thing only, to get to that active shooter. The cops risking their own lives to keep the shooter from taking more lives. It all starts with cries for help coming from a school. Shots fired, heard by police arriving outside.
We're good.
Making their way inside.
Keep moving, moving, moving!
Everybody get down!
In this case, though, the school is actually a mock-up at the Charlotte Police Training Academy. The active shooters and victims aren't real, not this time. But these Charlotte cops are training as if it's all real, every time.
This is one of those situations where we are simply reacting to worst case scenario where there is a threat and innocent lives are at stake. So
Brent Simpson is one of the training officers, overseeing from above as another training officer, the one on the left in the blue hoodie, plays the role of the bad guy, putting on a helmet for protection, then walking the halls of this would-be school with a loaded gun, looking for someone to shoot, waiting for someone to shoot. For a moment, you forget it's just a training exercise, watching him move from door to door, past what looks like a blackboard, from classroom to classroom, just like a real active shooter would, with no one to stop him, until the police rush the front door.
Go, 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 go!
we focus on communication, finding the threat as quickly as possible, aggressing on the threat as quickly as possible. Draw that attention back on us versus innocent people standing around, you know, and keep it simple.
Hands up! Hands up! Get out! Down! I got him covered. On the ground, on the ground.
Everybody get down!
We're using simulation gunfire, right? This sounds like real gunfire. We're using other things, smoke, people yelling, screaming. So we're trying to throw in and overwhelm their senses just so they're starting to understand just a piece, small piece of what it may be like.
Bomb, 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 bomb.
The trainees also have to watch out for pipe bombs. That's one of many lessons learned from other school shootings. Lessons that the instructors share with these Charlotte police trainees after every active shooter drill.
When you found the suspect, what'd you do?
Lessons that the trainees talk about before their next drill.
Steady pace.
Call out where you're going. If you see a shooter, everyone's calling out shooters.
You can see it when they come into the door. They're hesitating. They're not hearing our victims that are running out screaming, hey, bad guys in there, suspects in there. They're not hearing a lot of things. They're starting to go into tunnel vision. So they're already experiencing some of the stress.
Fork, we're coming at you.
So we are constantly trying to look for newer ways to train, to make it more realistic, to deal with things that we can't replicate here.
Veteran officers say they're some of the hardest lessons these cops will ever have to learn, and hopefully never have to use.
Most officers can probably go through a 30-year career and not have to deal with something this traumatic. There's going to be injured kids, there's going to be injured staff in the school, and these officers are going to have to bypass a lot of that to get to the person who's still, you know, basically committing a murder at will. to run into that situation, to have a lot of people standing in front of them, and they have to find the one person that's armed and committing homicide. I don't know an officer, at least in my agency, that would not willingly sacrifice their life to save a child. I think at the end of the day, if it's an active shooter in a school, we know we're going, and we know we may take rounds to get that job done, but we're going to do it.
And the police tell us that now, for the first time, they're training for these active shooter situations side by side with the fire department. Sort of like what happens on a military battlefield. The police providing cover for first responders so they can treat the wounded in one part of the building, while the police look for the active shooter in another part of the building. Amy?
Thanks so much, Jeff. It is jarring to watch those police officers train in that way, but also a little bit reassuring to know that they are preparing for the worst, and of course we're all hoping